Hey, I want to go to the beginning of your career where you said that you worked at Corals and you worked under some great managers. Um, what made them great as managers, and what did you learn from them, taking going forward to your career?
Okay. Yeah, they were probably two of the most influential managers I had, purely because I started in the game and I didn't know how a betting shop run from behind the jump, rather than just like being a punter. So it was all till checks and stuff like that. They were extremely thorough in what they'd done. They made sure all the staff were aware of everything about the game. The shops were always immaculate. They both created a really good environment and a relationship between punters and staff. And it was just like, this is how a shop should be run. Like I say, it was one of the most flagship shops. The first manager was Peter Lamorvan. He then got promoted to the George Street Croydon one, which was an even busier shop. And then Ray Carey came along, and he just slotted straight in, the same ethos. And it's just something I've tried to match wherever I've been. You know, get my staff all on side, make sure the shops are completely as they should, they look as they should, and that there's a good relationship between punters and staff.
So you started as a cashier, so
Yeah.
basically just taking the bets.
Yeah.
But they employed someone that was interested in racing.
Yeah.
Do you think that's changed these days?
I think it probably has actually, yeah, because a lot of the skills gone out of it. Obviously, you don't have to settle bets anymore. It's a lot of just pressing buttons. I mean, a lot of people say they're just key holders now. You walk in, open the door, flick a few switches and log onto your till, and that's all you're doing. And I have seen that in quite a lot of shops. So there are still some shops out there where you want to go and have a bet. I mean, there's a couple I would bet in, but there's a vast majority I wouldn't. It's just the way it is, I think, unfortunately.
Okay, so what did you take from them and change at the first shop where you became a manager? Where was that?
Well, Ray actually then got promoted somewhere to area manager, so I applied for the Thornton Heath shop, but they said it was too busy a shop for me as my first shop, which was ridiculous because I'd ran it for about 3 months between the new manager coming along, and it had been fine, everything was fine, company politics. So there was a small shop in Streatham, Greyhound Lane. The manageress from there, she got the gig for Thornton Heath, and I got to go to her shop and run that one. It was completely different because it was a lot quieter. I mean, I'd gone from doing like 1,500 bets on a Saturday to 400 or 500 on a Saturday. There was a lot less custom. It was a lot less of a smaller shop. So regarding what did I bring with it, I just carried on their beliefs and just making sure the staff all knew what they were doing and the shop was set up and was always open on time, etc. It was just the same.
Was there like a financial benefit for being in a busy shop? Was there like bonus scheme, that sort of thing, or was it like cushy to be put to a quiet shop?
No, there was a bonus scheme. There'd be like an FOBT, not then, AWP machine. If you got your fruit machines, you'd get a small bonus, but we weren't talking massive bonuses or anything. I mean, I think the biggest one I ever got for a good 6-month period in the shop was about 150 quid in them days, which was still good money, don't get me wrong. That's probably one of the highest I ever got until I came to Star.
When you so you've got your first shop as a manager. Is that at that time? Is that then? This is what I want to do. This is my career.
Yes and no. I did love the game. I love sports betting, and I will love watching sport as well. They obviously had Sky Sports in them days, so I got to sit there at work and watch sport. It's not an excuse for not doing any work, but it's
research.
It's a bonus. It's a bonus that it's on. So I still wasn't 100% sure. It was still new to me, like working in the shops. So we're talking about 4 years then. I was working in the game. I think so, but I didn't want to stay in that shop. I wanted to go into a busy shop and test myself.
Yeah. So
I wanted to progress.
But you binned it and went travelling.
Yeah, one of my mates was going travelling, and I thought, do you know what? Let me do it as well, because we went to college together. I actually got him a job at Coral as my cashier, so he could earn some money to take with him. So we worked for about 6 months, and then he handed his notice in sort of mid-October to mid-October I think it was. I finished on Boxing Day that year, and we went travelling to Canada for the winter sports. We both snowboard, so we basically just went across the Rockies, Banff, Lake Louise, Jasper, for about 3 months. It was brilliant. And then I dropped into America and went sort of worked my way across from South Dakota across to Chicago and up to New York because I've got a cousin that works in New York. So I ended up going and staying there with him. I thought I might be able to get a job, but it was, what was that, 2002, so it was just after 9/11, and they cracked down on like obviously all the illegal immigrants, so I needed a green card. I thought it'd be easy, it wasn't. So money, I had a flat at that time, so I was renting it out, so I was getting money coming in, which helped, but it wasn't enough. So I was running low on funds as well, so I ended up having to jump on the flight back just before the World Cup, so I think that was June. Yeah, World Cup 2002, yeah.
It's lucky you went that way, because if you'd gone to Thailand, you'd never have come back. It'd be that cheap. You went the expensive route, didn't you?
Yeah.
Right, so after your sabbatical, you're back into the business in Croydon.
Yes, like I say, I came back just for the World Cup. I stayed, didn't go back to work until after the World Cup. I pretty much watched all of that. It was Japan, so there was a lot of early kickoffs. Ireland got to the quarterfinals, was it? Got knocked out on penalties. I'll never forget that. Yeah, but after that, then it was like I need to get working again. So I called the then area manager of Corals, sort of for the whole sort of that Thames region area, who I knew. And within a day, I was back at work on relief. He was like, "Yeah, we'll take you back. We haven't got a shop for you at the moment." But I sort of covered Croydon, the 3 shops in Sutton. I sort of worked around there, Banstead. Was back there for a couple of months, and the manager of George Street Croydon then went on a long-term sickness, so they just moved me straight in there. That was in sort of October, I think. He was off then until a week before Cheltenham, where he came back, but he only survived a month and then relocated down to Poole on the coast. So they just said, "We want you to be manager." I didn't have to apply for it or anything, and there I was in arguably the busiest shop in South London for Corals, managing it, which is where I wanted to be anyway.
But you experienced the worst the industry has to offer.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great shop, really good, still more of a community feel, but around that time, 2003, 4 or whatever it was, obviously Luna House was in Croydon, and all the asylum seekers were suddenly started arriving on coaches. I remember going to work one day and there was like 3 coach loads just sat outside at Luna House waiting to be processed. I think they sort of got accommodation and a little bit of money, and then they were just free to do whatever they want, which normally involved them hanging around the FOBs in bookies and begging, basically, which was a nightmare in George Street. We would have, I think the machines were all together, and you just have a semicircle of 6 or 7 of them just watching people play, and then the minute someone won, hand out, "I gave you that number, I did this, I did that." So it was a constant battle to kick them out, basically. And then I'd be out, say if I'd be out, I don't know, even having a bet myself and they were in the other bookies, they'd come up and start hassling me, or if I'd go out for a drink after work with friends and there was like some of them in the pub, they'd give me hassle. I ended up getting assaulted by one of them as well. He like grappled me, and as I was ushering him out the door, or throwing him out basically, because it had got to that stage, I was pulling the door shut and he took a running jump and my whole hand got caught in the door. So all my fingers there were just completely bleeding. Police were called. It was all due to go to court, and the day before it was going to court, the day before the CPS threw it out, just said, "There's no case to answer, we haven't got enough evidence," even though it was all on camera and everything. So kind of dismayed then. By that stage, I was just fed up of working for Corals and in that area. I had no support from Corals in that respect, no HR, no area manager. No one had sort of come to see if I was all right. I was just left to get on with it. Constantly calling the police out regarding other customers, like all these guys. Even the police stopped coming out. They were seriously understaffed in Croydon at the stage. So yeah, I was just reaching the end of my tether, to be honest with you.
And apart from that, obviously nasty situation there, how much did the fixed odd betting terminals change the ambience of betting shops?
Well, obviously with that, I mean, I think 2002, I seem to remember them being in George Street. They were these little dumpy ones at the time, not like the ones we've got now. Used to open them in the evening, and like notes would spring out. There were so many notes in it. People, like, you'd do £100 spin at the time. People were just smashing money in them. Businessmen, like, that you wouldn't normally see in the betting shop, were in there just feeding them. So it was new at first. It was like, I couldn't believe how much we were taking out of these machines. The ambience being, it brought a lot more people in, and not racing people, which obviously put off a lot of racing people. They used to like start sitting in the shop having a tea, watching the afternoon's racing. But with people screaming and that, they seem to drift off to other shops where it wasn't like not on a main street, so you could go to a smaller shop, and I think they sort of preferred to do that. So it did change it quite a lot, to be honest with you.
So from a business point of view, it was quite good because it brought in people that wouldn't normally have come in the shop, and that you didn't tend to find that the racing people stopped betting on the 250 and Exeter and went to the FOBTs, or did
they did play them as well? Yeah, they did as well.
They've only got a certain amount of money to lose, haven't they? So
yeah, I mean, there was always the talk of when are the FOBs going to overtake the horses for profits? Because we'd always, I think, the first time we were looking, it was sort of like 70-30, and you could see it slowly sort of creeping, and then it flipped, and it was the other way, and it was all about the machines. Obviously, then like, you could have still have a few good punters into shop, but not as many.